now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant, located on St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out his website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's for an authentic Italian meal. And I was talking to Sal the other day, and I said, I'm jonesing for your pizza, man. I'm going to have to take a ride down. Trust me. It's worth the trip. If you're heading south, just go around. It's real easy to get there. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by the Title Bout Championship computer game. You can get yourself a copy. Visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the banner. And I like to give them out here today too. So maybe I'll give one out today. We'll get the biggest super chat or something like that going today, and we'll do it. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week boxing channel. That's right, Billy C. Boxing. You can catch it on all the major streaming services on your TV. Just go to GinikoUSA.com, GINIKOUSA.com. Sign up today. It's great, actually. It not only does it replay these shows, but all of our special events that we've done over the past 15 years, it's up there, and the programming schedule gets changed. So, check it out all different times, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, lots of good stuff up there. And you will see younger versions of me and the rest of the gang. And finally, today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Men on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold, and you can get a copy of it right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Find out why I'm so adamant about getting Tom Molyneux's story told. And it's a quick read, man, and you'll be amazed. Everybody that reads the book always reaches out and tells me. The funny thing about the book was what got me into it. I had picked up there's this series called Boxania. It was written by a cat named Pierce Egan. He was actually considered the first sports reporter back in the early 1800s. And I was flipping through it, and I came across the his main fight, and I started reading it. And the description of the fight, it just captivated me, and I had to learn more about this guy. And 7 years later, I was able to obtain all the research I needed to put together this book, and it's a great read. It's a no-nonsense, true story book about Tom Molyneux. Anyway, today's show, we're going to be talking about the Usyk Witherspoon fight. Our post-fight thoughts on that. A little technical note. We are working to get our camera shots for all my co-conspirators here on, but it's just the quality's not there, and it's just not working the way we want. So we're trying alternatives. So today, when everyone calls, you're going to hear voices and see no pictures, just voices. So we'll see what happens there. But in case you missed it, Oleksandr Usyk made his heavyweight pro debut. His heavyweight pro debut. Well, his heavyweight debut, he was a former unified cruiserweight world champion, won the World Boxing Super Series in the cruiserweight division, fought for the first time officially at heavyweight. Last-minute sub on less than a week's notice. Chazz Witherspoon had to step up. Tyrone Spong failed a drug test put this fight in jeopardy. And Chazz Witherspoon stepped up. Preliminarily, he said that he was grateful for the opportunity and figured he would capture his chance here to catapult himself. But Chazz Witherspoon is it wasn't a big test for Usyk. In case you missed it, Usyk won via a stoppage. He couldn't. Chazz Witherspoon couldn't continue after the 6th round. His corner stopped it. He was winded. He's 38 years old. Did land a couple of shots on Usyk, but Usyk started out a little slow in this fight, but started tattooing Witherspoon. But I don't want to be too critical because I like Usyk a lot, and I'm curious to see what he brings. Definitely sold the place out. Big following for him, which I was very happy to see in Chicago. But Usyk improved to 17-0 with 13 knockouts when he stopped Chazz Witherspoon officially in the 7th round. It was the end of the 6th when he couldn't continue. Chazz Witherspoon was a slow, big target for Usyk. We got to see Usyk's talent. We already saw it at the cruiserweight division. Is a busy fighter. My only question is, he's calling out. He wants a title shot now. But my question is, can he take a legitimate punch? I'm talking, can he take a shot from a legitimate heavyweight, today's heavyweight, a guy that's in shape, a guy who can bang and also take a punch? Can Usyk deal with a guy like that? He's calling out Wilder and Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz, I guess, for that matter. Can he really beat those guys? Is he going to be too small? I did see Witherspoon land a good, solid punch. One good, solid punch in that fight. It was a counter punch, landed flush, and it's kind of stopped Usyk in his tracks. Not so much that it hurt him, but he took a step back. He's like, oh, okay, one of the funny things is he's already ranked number 1 in the WBO. So theoretically, he's got a shot at the winner of the Joshua Ruiz fight. And he's ranked number 2 in the WBA. Personally, if I'm Usyk and or part of that team, I would want to get in there with somebody else before I attempted to fight the winner of Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz rematch. I'm thinking somebody, if he really wants to test himself, how about somebody like Kubrat Pulev or even Dominic Breazeale? Breazeale is a guy that's not that fast, but he's big and he can punch. I would think Usyk could outbox him, but he could see how he could withstand a legitimate punch from a big guy. I like Dominic Breazeale against Usyk. I think it would be a good fight. Or he could even go another route and take some of the other young fighters in the division like Otto Wallin or even Hughie Fury. Hughie Fury has proven that he fights anybody. To me, he's not too dangerous. That would be a bigger name, maybe big money in England for a Usyk. Or he could try one of the young guns, man, like a Daniel Dubois or even a Joe Joyce. See how his boxing ability could handle against a true banger. But one of those guys, I think, Usyk should be looking for. I don't think he should try to jump in the ring with any of the top heavyweights right now. And I say top meaning, of course, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, Andy Ruiz. You got to put him in the mix. Even a Luis Ortiz, for that matter. I just, if I'm Usyk, and I'm no disrespect to Usyk, and all the Usyk fans are going to be, pissed off at me or whatever. But the truth of the matter is he's got to be in there with a heavyweight that's in shape, that can take a punch and that can land a punch, and see how he fares. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, also on that card, Dmitry Bivol won a unanimous decision over Lenin Castillo. to improve to 17-0 with 11 knockouts. Castillo drops his third fight of his career. He's now 20 wins, 3 losses, and a draw, with 15 of his wins coming by knockout. In round 6, Bivol landed a counter shot that landed right on Castillo's jaw and dropped him. Looked like he was in a little more trouble than he appeared to be after he started fighting again. The way his legs and equilibrium kind of were bouncing around, I thought that he was in a little more trouble. I was surprised Bivol didn't jump on him. So obviously Bivol saw that he wasn't, that hurt. But any event, 120 to 107, 119, 108 twice with the way the 3 judges scored it. Bivol made his 5th title defense in this fight. The thing that gets me about Bivol when I look at him is he's clearly a smaller light heavyweight. This guy looks like he clearly could make 168, and I wonder if he could even make middleweight at 160. His body looks like he could. They were talking about, I can't stand that Chris Mannix, but they're talking about during the fight that, he needs to do something exciting. He needs to go in for the kill. He's got pop, he's got this, he's got that, and he's just not exciting his value. I don't know if it's that. I think it's more along the lines of people are kind of hesitant to fight the guy because of his talent. But I think a good fight for Bivol, assuming that Canelo gets past Kovalev on November 1st, or is it November 2nd? I think it's November 2nd, in Vegas coming up. How about a fight between Canelo, again, assuming Canelo gets past Kovalev, because I don't know if that's an easy fight for him. But how about Canelo at 168 against Bivol? Theoretically, if he does get by, Kovalev, he will be a champion in the light heavyweight division. But how about a fight against him? Anyway. Another fight I just wanted to mention was a fight that took place over on the other side of the pond. And IBF champion Josh Warrington improved to 30-0. Just wanted to mention that 114, 112, 116, 111. And I'm sorry, the fight was stopped in the second round, 2 minutes and 54 seconds. I don't know what I was looking at, but I'll tell you the truth. What I was looking at was getting my man Sal on the line, and joining us right now is Sal Rocky Senecola. Good morning, Sal.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
I'm doing good, my man. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Did you hear me okay?
Yeah, well, you're a little. You sound a little distant, but what'd you think of the fight last night?
Let me tell you, I finally learned the definition of a good fighter, but not exciting fighter. They were good. They were good fights. I was very surprised about Chazz Witherspoon. I didn't think he was going to go as far as he did. And Oleksandr Usyk picked up a fan in me, and so did Dmitry Bivol. I think they were pretty good. The fights were good, a little closer than I thought, but I gave Bivol a shutout, 120, and there was a couple of close rounds, but from Castillo, but I still went with Bivol.
Let's talk about the Usyk fight. Usyk was a unified cruiserweight champion, stepped up, fought his first real fight at heavyweight. He did have a couple of fights over 200 pounds early in his career, but and let's be real, Witherspoon took the fight on less than a week's notice, clearly was out of shape, and Usyk outboxed him. But my question for Usyk, can he really handle a shot from a legitimate heavyweight, the heavyweights that we got today? He's calling out Anthony Joshua. He's calling out Deontay Wilder. He wants a shot at the title. I mean, we don't even know if he can take a solid punch. Chazz Witherspoon wasn't much of a test. What's your thoughts?
I think you're right on 100%, and I think that, like you said, Usyk is a good boxer, good fighter, but is he really ready to take on these 245-pound guys and 265-pound guys? I think they'll play with him, and he'll probably get tagged pretty hard.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. How will he react should he get hit from a guy like a Wilder or Anthony Joshua or even a Tyson Fury? How does he handle a Tyson Fury leaning on him and doing what Tyson Fury does? I mean, Usyk has hand speed. He's accurate. He comes forward. I mean, he's an exciting fighter in that sense. But I'm looking for him. I mean, he's calling out these guys already. I was mentioning some names like maybe he should go after a Pulev or a Dominic Breazeale or even a young fighter like Daniel Dubois or Joe Boyce or even a Huey Fury or Otto Wallen. I'm looking for him to test himself at least with somebody that would be similar to a top guy in terms of size and power.
Well, I'll tell you what. You're right on, and I like those opponents you listed. And I will tell you, a good, solid, sound fighter like Usyk believes in himself, believes in as he should, and believes in the grand prize and him earning it. And so I can't discount that possibility, but he is a much smaller heavyweight at that class for this time period when we have these huge guys. And I just can't see how he can go 12 rounds with a Tyson Fury or with a couple other fighters. But I think a Dominic Breazeale will be a good test because Breazeale could take a shot too.
Yeah, and a Dominic Breazeale can take a shot. He could dish him out. And he's not too fast. He's big, so I would think that would be a decent test for Usyk. I like the fight. It kind of reminds me, the last cruiserweight, in my opinion, that moved up and was successful at heavyweight, aside from Evander Holyfield, because I thought that Evander Holyfield kind of evolved into a legitimate big heavyweight, was Michael Spinks, and Michael Spinks when he fought. Larry Holmes, he used his boxing ability, darted in and out, was able to land punches. But then, of course, when he fought a power puncher in a Mike Tyson, he couldn't last. Do you see something similar with Usyk, where he does have the boxing ability similar to Michael Spinks? I'm not comparing the two in terms of style,
no.
But as far as being able to dart in, dart out, accurate punching. Win on points. I mean, to me, I compare what Usyk's challenges are today in today's heavyweight division, similar to what Michael Spinks faced, when he fought.
Great analogy. And I see Usyk trying his best to just do the same thing. But like you said, when Michael Spinks fought the big guys, it was a little bit of a challenge. Usyk, with the exception of Tyson, Usyk, though, I think he's a good, solid fighter, but I do see, I like to see him more as a cruiserweight. And I'll tell you what, the cruiserweight division could sure use him.
Well, Usyk left the cruiserweight division, and I agree. I wish he would have stayed in it. But unfortunately, in today's boxing, and always really was the case, the cruiserweights don't make as much as the heavyweights. So that's obviously the main reason he jumped ship. But you mentioned the Bivol fight. I kept hearing them, and I know you alluded to that comment based on what they were saying during the broadcast. And, I kind of agree and disagree. I do think Bivol needs to be a little more exciting, but I don't think that that's the reason why he's not getting the big fights. I think that a lot of other fighters in his division and even the division below want to avoid him. I think he's a solid fighter, and I do think he should have kind of been a little more seek and destroy. He seems to be complacent with getting the W. What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I like Bivol. I really do. And they picked me up as a good fan. But I'll tell you what, you nailed it right on the head there, Bill. I'll tell you, I didn't see that sense of urgency as we would want to see. I thought he could have stepped it up a little bit. I thought he could have monopolized on a few occasions some combinations and some better punching ability. But he's solid, and I'll follow him and I'll watch him fight. But yeah, I thought he could have turned it up a little bit.
Earlier in the show, I had mentioned that I thought, as far as Bivol goes, assuming Canelo gets by Kovalev, and you and I talked yesterday. Earlier on, I thought it would be, I wasn't even giving Kovalev much of a chance. But now that I've really sat back and analyzed what could happen if Kovalev fought a smart fight, I don't think it's a layup fight for Canelo by any stretch. But should he get by Kovalev, I would love to see a Canelo against Bivol, even at 168 or somewhere between 168 and 175. Assuming Canelo does beat Kovalev, he would have picked up a light heavyweight title. What's your thoughts on that?
I think you're right on again. You are clairvoyant.
I'm on a roll.
And a promoter. But I'll tell you what. I'm excited to see the next time Canelo gets in the ring. And I'm also excited to see what's going to happen with Triple G. I still love the middleweights, but these guys are getting bigger and bigger, and they're moving up. I think a fight with Canelo would be good. And I think that I just want to see Canelo fight again. I want to see, and I wish it was against Triple G, but it's not going to be. And I just want to see him fight again, see if he's still as ferocious, as big, as alive, and as monstrous as he's been, like a beast. And
well, you're gonna get to see him in a couple of weeks because he's fighting Kovalev November 2nd. So
I'm looking so forward to that, Bill.
It's gonna be a decent fight for sure. But speaking of decent fights, some news I just wanted to throw out at you. A couple of weeks ago, we saw a great fight on the undercard of a title fight, and Akhmedov fought Mario Barrios, and it was on the undercard of the Errol Spence fight, I believe. And I thought Akhmedov beat Barrios despite hitting the canvas twice, and he just busted this kid up really bad. And they ended up giving the win and the title to Mario Barrios. He looked disfigured at the end of the fight, etc. Well, the WBA ordered a rematch for this fight. It was for a vacant title, and they ordered the rematch. It was announced yesterday, as a matter of fact. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it was a good fight. I saw the fight, and I just didn't know the sanctioning bodies were getting involved with the promoting as heavily. But why not? They always do anyway, one way or the other.
Well, the thing is the way they can do that is it was for a vacant title, and Barrios ended up winning, so the WBA could say, okay, now your first defense has to be a rematch against this guy. If not, we strip you of the title. So they're all already going to have. They've already given both sides a month to negotiate a fight. if they can't reach a deal, then the fight's going to go to purse bid. So in a sense, the WBA is not messing around here. I like the rematch. I would like to see Barrios do something different, but this Akhmedov is a tough character, and I think that the pressure will be on him to change up a little, because he was just a motion machine. He reminded me of you, man, the way he kept coming forward and throwing fights. I mean, throwing punches. He did hit the canvas twice, and I think what lost him the fight was the very last, at least on my scorecard, was the very last round when he got dropped. The way the judges scored it, 114-112, similar to the way I had it. And then the other two had it a little crazier, 116-111, 115-111, which I think clearly were hometown guys' favorite.
Yeah. Is Bird backing up refereeing?
I don't know. I forget who was the referee, but I know the wife is still judging. But in any event, any final thoughts on Usyk or Bivol?
Well, I like them both. They picked me up as a good fan, and I look forward to seeing them fight again. I think they are very solid, all-round good boxers, decent punching power, and but I think that they should definitely look at fighting somebody that I like. A couple of rematches. That's what I like. But I like them both. They picked me up as a fan.
Well, Usyk, I'm curious to see how he proceeds here. And like I said, I got a couple of fights that if I were involved with him, I would want to see him before I jumped in the ring with any of the guys he's calling out. But Sal, I appreciate you joining us so bright and early. And like I told you yesterday, I was telling the viewers and listeners here, I got to come down. I'm starting to Jones out for your pizza, man.
Man, you got to come down, Bill. You got to come down. We're having a great season, probably our busiest year ever, and love to make a pizza for you, pal, or anything else.
Well, you know what? Well, there's plenty of stuff. I got to go there, and I got to fast before I come to your restaurant so I can eat a lot. But I'm going to wait. It's the weather's here is nice, and as soon as it gets a little colder, that's when you're going to see my smiling face.
All right, buddy. That sounds great. I look forward to that.
All right, my man. You stay well, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, Billy. You too. Bye-bye.
All right,
bye-bye, guys.
Take care. That's my man, Sal Rocky Senecola, giving us his thoughts on the fight. In case you were joining in us a little late, the couple of fights that I think would make sense for Usyk is before he goes to an Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz winner, or Deontay Wilder. I really like to see him in there with Dominic Breazeale. I think that would be a good fight for Usyk. Maybe a Kubrat Pulev if he really wants to test himself. Or he could even go with tough fighters like Otto Wallin or Hughie Fury, or a couple of young bangers like Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce. Get one of those fights. Any of those fights could be big money for him. And then, assuming he gets by them successfully, then go for one of the title holders, because to jump right in, I just don't think that Usyk really has gotten tested last night by Chazz Witherspoon. In my opinion, Chazz was game to take the fight on 5 days' notice, or 4 days' notice to be exact, but clearly was out of shape. Was hoping that he could land a punch. His distance was not there. Did land one counter punch that I thought was effective. Did not seem to hurt Usyk at all. But Oleksandr Usyk, in my opinion, needs to fight another top heavyweight before he jumps in the ring with one of the belt holders. Listen, I'm going to take a short break, and when I come back, we'll get Dax Khan's thoughts. So don't go nowhere.
Billy C will be right back.
have osteoarthritis in one or both knees? If you have osteoarthritis in one or both knees, are you on Medicare, Obamacare, or other health insurance? If you answered relief ointment that can be used for pain experienced on other areas of your body, our experienced staff will work with your doctor and handle all of your Medicare or insurance paperwork. Best of all, your prescription is shipped directly to your home for free. Will you qualify for a prescription strength solution for osteoarthritis of the knee or for a topical pain relief ointment covered by Medicare or private insurance at little or no cost to you?
Find out for free by calling the Back and Knee Pain Center at 1-800-604-1072. That's 1-800-604-1072, 1-800-604-1072.
Medical alarms for people who fall or have medical emergencies. You never think you'll need one until you do. Hi, I'm Lonnie Anderson for Advantage Alert. Today, our advanced systems locate and protect people inside and outside their homes, plus when they're on the road, allowing users with the press of a button to speak with an operator who can summon help. And even after 30 years, Advantage Alert's products remain amazingly affordable.
Call 800-985-1705.
Addiction is an epidemic in America. If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, you need to call the R360 Network now.
I'm Ken Seeley, author, addiction recovery specialist, and former addict. R360 is a nationwide network of addiction recovery specialists that I personally selected and recommend.
The call is free, the consultation is free. If you have private insurance, your treatment could be covered with no out-of-pocket cost.
Call 800-705-0023.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic? Answered yes. You may.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Don't forget to check out our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week boxing network. That's right. You can catch us, all the replays of this show and all the specials we've done over the last 15 years on our channel, which is available through Ginico USA. It's on all the top streaming platforms, so check out, sign up today for free, of course, GinicoUSA.com. Joining us right now, get his thoughts on the fights last night, Dax Khan. Good morning, Dax.
Good morning, Billy C.
Usyk, what was your thoughts, brother?
Well, he officially arrived. Of course, it was a long road till he got there, with the bicep injury, and then Carlos Takam moving on. We had Tyrone Spahn come in. Then we had the dirty test. And we get Chazz Witherspoon, last minute, not really in shape, even though he did fight earlier this year. And Witherspoon never really, at his best, was a anything higher than a B-level type fighter. So we don't really have much to go on. It's more or less just a kind of like a promo for another fight for when he steps up against somebody who's a little bit more capable in that division. Oleksandr Usyk, he's a complete package, and I think consensus, the only question is how does, and you've said it several times, how does he handle when he gets hit flush by one of these bigger heavyweights?
Do you think he's ready to just jump right to a title shot? I mean, he's very confident. He's got the look of confidence, I tell you. If he was big, man, he would be one mean guy. But, he's kind of a technician like a Klitschko, but he's a little more active. He seems more willing to engage. But if you've heard some of the names I threw out there, I'm thinking, a fight against a Pulov or a Brazil or even a Otto Wallen or Huey Fury, Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce would make more sense for me before he steps in with a title holder. It would give us a good opportunity to see, and give himself a good opportunity to see if he can really handle a shot from these guys.
I agree. I don't know, maybe somebody like a Jarrell Miller. who is a big guy, but he's not overly fast and he's not overly nimble. But he's a strong fighter, and that would not only would we find out how Usyk takes the punch, but we'd find out exactly how Usyk reacts when he's delivering punches against guys and they're really not being phased. Usyk usually any stoppages he gets, they come with accumulation of pressure and punches landed. There's no clean shot. No, he's certainly not a one-punch knockout artist, not even as a cruiserweight. So somebody like a Jarrell Miller would really tell us how does he handles those fighters that are so much bigger than him.
Yeah, I forgot about him because I just think so little, I should say, of Jarrell Big Baby Miller. But you're right, that would be. That'd be a good fight. And Miller, in his defense, he's a high output guy. That would be that's a good one. I like it.
Right, because, Bill, remember, in the division with these guys as big as they are, it's not just how does he handle the punch. How does he handle when they lean on him and they hold him and they wear him down?
Right.
Because that will knock a guy out. Usyk could find himself very much in the same position that Chazz Witherspoon did last night in his corner, exhausted and just unable to continue after a few rounds.
You're right. And that's why Tyson Fury, to me, would be very successful against Usyk doing that, leaning on him and the way Fury has done that. But a fighter that you're real high on, Dmitry Bivol, did what Bivol does. The commentating were pretty. It appeared to me, at least Mannix was pretty negative on him, expecting him to go in and be a knockout guy. He waits for the knockouts, and when they come, they come. If not, he just wins every round. I mean, what else can you say? What was your thoughts on his performance?
And a lot of the fans on social media were really harsh on him last night as well. I'm a big Bivol fan, like you stated. I think he's the best pure boxer in the division by far. I think we all wanted a better opponent than Lenin Castillo. That's not a knock on Castillo. He's a tricky fighter. We've seen that in the Marcus Brown fight where, he's very difficult. He has a great chin. He's tall. He's rangy. And he worked with Arthur Beterbiev. Him and Beterbiev have had quite a bit of sparring together. So maybe that was, beneficial in his in his area last night. Bivol does everything right, as you stated. From his footwork, he has decent speed. He has a great punch variety. He has, a pretty darn good chin. I just think that because Bivol showed so much dominance early, and he does have such a complete skill set, that the expectations for him are so high by the fans. Everything that he does, everybody's going to say, I know he can do better. I want to see him do better. If he didn't come out like that in the beginning of his career, then nobody would really be complaining about these type of dominant wins. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and what was how I don't really get into the stats live. I don't like to have any judgment on punch stats till after the fight. They're interesting conversation piece, but during the fight, I think that was one of the demises of HBO and Jim Lampley specifically. But I was amazed when I saw the amount of jabs that Bivol threw last night. Not so much the quantity, but the fact that most of them landed. Every time he throws a jab, they connect. A lot of fighters use a jab to keep their opponents at bay or to set up their power punches, of course. That's typically what you're taught. But his jabs were landing. The difference in numbers were outrageous, and then when they displayed the power shots landed, they were awfully close. Do people give him credit for his quality jab?
I don't think right now he's getting the credit that he deserves for the reasons that I stated. Remember, boxing is a hit and don't get hit game. That's the object. Hit and don't get hit. Dmitry Bivol doesn't get hit. He's not reckless. He doesn't chance because he knows he's the smaller guy in there. If you notice, Dmitry Bivol has always been the smaller guy. He looked smaller last night. He looked 2 divisions smaller when he fought Joe Smith Jr. He looked smaller against Pascal. Maybe the height is the same because he's 6 foot. I believe that Joe Smith and Leonard Castillo is about 6'2". But Bivol, it's not so much the height. It's that physical mass. If you look at him, he doesn't have a big bulky body. He doesn't have those big round shoulders. Even when you you go back and look at the Pascal fight and you compare the two in their upper body, Bivol looks a lot smaller. Bivol, his team has said more than once that they actually, to maintain that light heavyweight limit, and to fall in between there and not on the low side, so it can be on the upper side, and he's able to go in there and compete with the light heavyweights that are bigger than him. They actually have a special diet, because he is a small guy. He really doesn't cut weight when he comes into fight. Not a lot of guys can say that. Most guys got to at least cut like 10 pounds. Bivol doesn't. Bivol's more or less, he's trying to, his diet's about maintaining weight.
Well, which brings me to what I said earlier. I mean, this is a guy that should clearly consider campaigning in the super middleweight division. I mean, realistically, there's more money fights for him at light heavyweight, but I mean, super middleweight. I mean, he looks like a super middleweight. I'm drooling for a potential fight should Canelo get past Kovalev. I'm drooling for a potential fight with Canelo against Bivol. I would love to see that.
Oh, I would too. I've stated that on the show here. I think I stated that when the Kovalev fight was announced, that I thought, the Bivol fight would actually be a better fight because the two are closer in size and it's a higher quality, boxing with the two. Bivol's a higher quality boxer than Kovalev. We all know that Kovalev's a big puncher, but Bivol, is a better technician in there. So, that's what I would like to see. But if he moved down in weight and he fought Callum Smith, that would be a huge fight. That would be, the biggest fight in that division since the Super Six.
Yeah, no, he's the top guy. He's the top dog. There's nobody else you can make a living off of, right?
Well, no, you have Benavidez in that division. There's a lot of guys in that division. The super middleweight division, as Ray Leonard was saying just a couple weeks ago, is the hottest division in the sport, according to him.
Yeah, well, maybe because there's so many young guys, but
has Ramirez officially moved out of that division? He hasn't vacated his title.
I haven't heard much. David Benavidez was the last big thing I saw in that division. So I and that was recently. So I don't know. Anyway, WBA ordered the Barrios Akhmedov rematch. What's your thoughts on that?
I believe it should be.
Me too.
I thought Akhmedov won that fight, so hopefully it follows through. Remember years ago when Evander Holyfield went over and faced Valuev, and he got the short end of the stick. The WBA, they ordered a rematch there, but it never happened.
Well, if they order a rematch, in my opinion, they're basically making Barrios fight him as his first defense. Otherwise, they could theoretically strip him.
Theoretically. But, again, it's the WBA.
Right. What can they put in their left hand to make them sign off to another opponent with their right?
Who knows? I mean, the WBA, every time I hear a complaint, and I know I've mentioned this on here before, is I always think about when Virgil Hill was the WBA Cruiserweight champion, and the conversation him and I had when he had told me that sometimes with the WBA, you literally have to go out and find your own opponents for them to approve. And they really rarely follow through with anything that they say. So when the WBA says something, more or less, it's like background noise. They're the sanctioning body where it's I'll see it when I believe it. But hopefully that fight does happen. It'd be a great fight.
It was announced earlier in the week that Errol Spence was in a serious car accident. 3 a.m. He was driving his Ferrari and rolled the thing. The shots of the car, he was lucky to get out of there. My question is, I mean, accidents happen, Dax, but my question is, what the hell is Errol Spence doing out at 3 in the morning? And there's been a lot of rumor of him kind of hanging with the wrong crowd, and I've seen video of him where he seems a little like Billy C on 12, 13 scotches, maybe Errol Spence needs to stay a little true to the sport. Otherwise, he's going to end up like a guy we call Adrian Broner.
Let's hope not. I don't know. I do know that. Well, I did see the video of that accident. I don't know if you actually seen the video recording. That was horrible. It was like something in NASCAR. And this came after Errol Spence's biggest fight. So I do know that once he heals up, that he's facing DWI charges. That was released in the media because his blood alcohol content was so high. Let's just hope Errol Spence recovers right now. You know, he's a young guy, 29 years old. He's great for the sport. He's a sensational fighter. The fact that he's alive is a miracle. Let's hope that he recovers fully and he's able to fight again right now. That's the important thing. After that, then I think the concern on whether or not he makes the same mistake or who he's keeping his company around, that's more important then. But right now, it's Errol Spence getting better and continuing on with his life. Because until he's really up and out of the hospital and active again, nobody really knows exactly how much that took out of him.
Did they officially announce that he was DWI? Because when I saw the report, they hadn't released that.
Yeah, well, in about 5, 6, 7 of major media outlets that reported it, they said that now he's facing, because his whether they do, they don't, I don't know, but he's facing, it was confirmed that he was drinking, that he did have the blood alcohol content in him, so well, that would be
I mean, I hate
viable for charges.
I hate to say it. I mean, that's what I assumed. Typically at that time in the morning, he's nothing good happens at 3 a.m.
Yeah,
so
what everybody thought about, most of the comments, Bill, was people thought about the Salvador Sanchez, a guy a young fighter, just reaching the pinnacle of his career, not really at the pinnacle, but just reaching that, was a superstar in the sport, on that road, for pound dominance, and then something like this happens, in a horrible accident, or something like a Diego Corrales, where out there, you have yourself, Diego with his motorcycle, you're out there, showing off, driving a little too fast, and that happens. Those Ferraris are not easy to drive. They're not like driving another car. So I don't know what kind of experience Errol Spence even had driving a car like that. It's not like you're going out there and it's not like a Mustang or a Corvette. Those Ferraris, you have to be able to compensate for that drift in the back. They're difficult to drive, let alone at high speeds or with any while drinking. So let's just hope that Errol Spence is doing well. And same thing. Before we forget, I got to mention same thing for Patrick Day, who was on that card last night and suffered that horrific knockout against Charles Conwell and underwent emergency surgery just a couple hours later. I haven't heard anything about how he's doing today. Have you?
I heard he was in a coma. So it's our prayers, thoughts go out to Patrick Day and his family. They just to jump back to the Ferrari. The problem with driving a vehicle like that. And you make a great point. The problem is that they're so tight, and if you're under the influence of anything, let alone alcohol, and you misjudge something by a fraction of an inch, you're in a ditch. You don't have to turn that wheel much to have it do anything. And you make a great point with the power and the S end and stuff. But
I had a friend of mine who had a Lamborghini, and they actually made him take courses at the dealership.
Oh, that's smart. That's
because it's just they're so fat. Like it's you step on that gas like you are with a regular car, and the car's jerking, and as you stated, they're so tight. You try and go around the corner like you would in a regular car, and that thing is it's drifting. So they're difficult to drive, no matter what. So let's just hope for the best for Errol Spence Jr. at this point in time.
I'll date myself right now. It's not like driving a Pinto, boys and girls, But in any event, Tyson Fury, we talked about this last week, but I didn't think it was going to happen so fast. And somewhere my man Coach is saying, "I told you so, Billy C." But it was announced that he is going to be taking part in a WWE event. As a matter of fact, it's taking place in Saudi Arabia on Halloween. He's going to be taking on Braun Strowman, which was the guy he jumped over the guardrail or whatever they have, the fence, to go at. I know they pay these guys a lot of money, Dax, but this bothers me. I mean, it's just. I mean, here's a guy. What's your thoughts?
Well, we hinted on the last show that we knew that was going to happen, and like I stated then, when the WWE does that with fighters, it's more or less kind of like a cosign on exactly how popular they have become. Anytime, even when it's not boxing or in other sports, anytime that an athlete has really reached that high status, they try and get them in there right away to capitalize, because that's it's a business. They're making money because they bring some crossover fans over there. The wrestling fans, they absolutely love it. So with Tyson Fury, hopefully he gets back to his business in the boxing ring. But this isn't really bad for the sport. It's not bad for Tyson Fury. If anything, Bill, what end up happening, and it happened with Floyd Mayweather Jr., is some of the fans from that sport that don't watch boxing will end up crossing over and coming over to the boxing side. And we always want more boxing fans, and Tyson Fury is just an entertainment guy.
What we want in boxing, and what the sport of boxing needs, and what I was just in a conversation about this the other day. What we need is lifelong boxing fans. The old fan like myself. I'm a lifelong boxing fan. The fan today, the new fan, and you're 100% correct. We want new fans, but my fear is that they're not going to become lifelong. That they're more of a boxer fan than a boxing fan. And what we need is boxing fans. We need fans that want to stick to the sport. And the way the sport is going, and the way it's promoted, and the types of fights that we see, don't get me wrong, we've been seeing some great ones. But like Charlo, he's a PBC fighter. They're making a big fight out of his next fight against Dennis Hogan. No disrespect to Hogan, but people want to see Charlo fight a top middleweight. Now Hogan's a busy fighter and stuff like that, and he's probably going to give Charlo trouble, and that's the sad part of it. But David Lemieux is back in action. He's going to be taking on Max Bursak, who's a tough guy. I'd like to see a Charlo fight a Lemieux or even a Bursak. But we need lifelong fans, not just fighter fans. You know what I mean?
Unfortunately, Bill, it's the era.
No, that's my point.
It doesn't just apply to boxing. That's just the era with people in general. So I understand exactly what you're saying. Yes, we need lifelong boxing fans, but in this era, the attention span is short.
Yeah, but the other sports get it. You get, even though the attention span is short, you have these kids today. They're still lifelong football or baseball fans, basketball fans. It's the boxing, it's the sport of boxing that's being left behind. That's the sad thing.
You mentioned the PBC, and I had this discussion the other day that and it just goes to what I'm saying, with the era, that if you see now, not just with the PBC, but whether or not it's the Zone or the ESPN Plus app, or with certain promoters that join together, everything has become more or less kind of league-like.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's become kind of almost like league-like, and in my opinion, that's because of that mindset of the fan is today, or as you stated, fighter fans. And so, the idea there is to draw in the fans of those fighters, and more or less, hopefully you can bring some new fans on board, if that makes any sense.
Of course, I was talking about that last week, and that's my hang up with the PBC. They're trying to copy off of Dana White's success with the UFC, and that's why they're staying in their own lane, so to speak. They're really the only promotional outfit that isn't fighting other fights with against other fighters with other promoters. They did with Andy Ruiz, and quite honestly, I feel that they felt that Andy Ruiz, that he had no chance. Now all of a sudden, you saw what happened. He held out. He was starting to say he wasn't going to fight him, and he got some money. So more power to Ruiz, but.
Anyway. That worked well in Ruiz's favor.
It did.
It did. Sacrificial lamb, and it just happened to you lead a lamb into a slaughter, and he comes out a king sheep.
There you go. But hey, before we let you go, there's a big fight next week. We'll be talking about Saturday, and it is in the light heavyweight division, and it actually features two of the division's champions. Oleksandr Usyk going up against Artur Beterbiev, and I like this fight. I'm a little surprised that they're very similar in every aspect. Usyk is a little taller. He's the WBC light heavyweight champ, and Beterbiev is the IBF champ. but only 2 years apart. The thing that surprises me in this fight, both undefeated, both similar amount of professional fights, the thing that gets me, though, is the computer ranks Vadzetic at number 2 in the world at light heavy, and they have Beterbiev at number 11. It seems to be, I would think that they should be ranked a little closer. What's your thoughts on the matchup, and how do you see the fight going?
I think it's a great matchup. I think everybody's excited for this. Number one, it's a unification bout. First and foremost, that's always a plus in boxing. Number two, it's against two undefeated guys that are at the prime of their careers, and both are exciting fighters. I think that Beterbiev has the power advantage, and not that by any means is Vazyk a light hitter. You know, he's a heavy hitter himself. But Vazyk, I believe, is the more rounded fighter, and Vazyk is usually the one who goes after his opponents. But Beterbiev is the guy who never stops coming forward. Vazyk has better footwork, so I think we're going to see, the boxer in Vazyk in this fight, and we're going to see, Beterbiev do exactly what Beterbiev does, and it's going to be a contrast of styles that fit well. There's nothing bad about this fight, Bill. I could just go on and say, all the good stuff about this fight. That could be a show in its own.
Yeah, well, we'll be talking about it next week, because that's on Friday night on ESPN, I believe, is carrying this one.
Yeah, I believe so, and the only question is the only thing, if I had to make a prediction, I go back and I look at Beterbiev's fight against Eric Welling, and I see that Vazyk is Eric Welling 5 levels above, so and he has more power, so the footwork, I think, is going to play a key role in this fight.
Well, every time I think of Artur Beterbiev, I think of my man John Iceman Scully, and he told me that he's one of the best fighters he's ever trained. And Scully's been training a lot of good fighters over his career, so I keep that in the back of my head for some reason,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And he said that to me before that Beterbiev, the power, he can't even describe how hard Beterbiev hits.
He said he hurt his hand. He said when he was holding the mitts, he hurt his hand.
Yeah, right, exactly. So that that tells you exactly how hard Beterbiev hits. But
so does his record, Dax, 14-0 with 14 knockouts.
Yeah, and they're not nobodies that he's knocking out either. But speaking of Scully, I didn't really get the full thing, but I seen pictures of him and Lenny Castillo leading up to the Bivol fight. So I don't know. Oh, that's right, because I see Castillo was sparring with Beterbiev.
Right. But Dax, I look forward to your thoughts after the unification fight next week, my man.
Yes, it's going to be a good one. Nobody should miss it, and I'll talk to you then.
All right, man. Thanks, Dax. Hey, make sure you keep up with Dax Khan's stuff on the website. Without him, the website wouldn't be going, www.billycboxing.com. And like I mentioned, David Lemieux fighting December 7th, going up against Mac Bursak. Lemieux, 40 wins, 4 losses, 34 coming by knockout. Is taking on Bursak, who's got a pretty good record himself. 34 wins, 5 losses, 2 draws, with 15 of his wins coming by knockout. That's going to be taking place in Montreal. And Jamal Charlo, 29-0, was defending his title against Dennis Hogan, 28-2. I'm just disappointed in the Charlo brothers. They talk a lot of smack, and they don't back nothing up, in my opinion. Or they do, against much lesser opposition. I'm going to take a short break. When I come back, we're scheduled to have Alex Perpali join us. Don't go nowhere.
Billy C will be right back.
Snacking has never been this exciting. At Great, enter the code ENJOY36 and we'll mail your free box to your home or office. Join thousands of grazers already in love with our exciting snacks. So come to graze.com for your first box free.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs?
Thing gave me instant relief, except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
You know, similar belts can cost you almost $1,000. But my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution spousing at 800-773-4604.
Bound against a smooth current set to your desired pace and temperature. With our new underwater treadmill, you can walk or run without stressing your joints. Endless pools are simple to install and even simpler to maintain. The water stays crystal clear with almost no chlorine. Call for your free idea kit and experience the freedom of swimming at home.
www.kofantasyboxing.com and tell them Billy C sent ya.
The one, the only, Don King.
Makes me feel good, Billy, to have you, the #1 show in the country, talking boxing with Billy. So I invite each and every American that's listening to this great show to tune in, because we want you to be there with Billy and me.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C., damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C Show. Glad you could be with us. Don't forget our website, www.billycboxing.com, where you can order my book. That's right, my book. Or you could just drop me an email, billy@talkinboxing, TALKINBOXING.com, and get a signed copy, or just go to Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com. Can't seem to connect with my man Alex. No problem. I forgot to tell everyone our plan, but in any event, I got some emails to read, so let's get started with that. This first one's from my man Rick. He says, "Hey Billy C, I've been catching up on a lot of classic Talkin' Boxing with Billy C episodes lately. It's been fun listening to you break down the old fights and give your predictions on all the big-time fights over the last 5 years or so. I know you're a big Triple G fan, but where do you see him falling on the list of great middleweights now that his career is winding down?" Rick says, "I have to give him credit for so many title defenses, but I think the lack of big-name wins on his resume definitely hurts his status. The best opponent he beat, in my opinion," this is Rick, "was Danny Jacobs, and I thought that fight had gone either way. He never gave Jacobs a rematch either. Whenever someone tells me Triple G was robbed against Canelo, I tell him it's okay. The Jacobs fight evens it out. His next best wins were against David Lemieux and Kell Brook, who was a welterweight. I really think it's a shame that Triple G never fought Sergio Martinez. That could have been a classic passing of the torch type of a fight, and if Sergio was in top form, I don't know that Triple G gets past him. I would even say Martinez was a bigger star at middleweight, even with less title defenses, because he beat big-name guys like Kelly Pavlik, Williams, and even Julio Cesar Chavez, all of which were bigger than him. Those were all spectacular fights, some of which Martinez had to get up off the canvas to win." Great point. He says, "I also think Hopkins by far beats out Triple G with more title defenses, but also coming through in super fights against Trinidad and De La Hoya, in addition to unifying the belts against the best of the division. And then, of course, Hopkins will have a great career at light heavy. Remember, you used to refer to Triple G as the most ducked fighter at 160, but outside of Mayweather coming up from welter to fight him, who exactly was he ducking? I'm sure Demetrius Andrade would be happy to fight him along with the Charlos. And I always thought was absurd to expect Mayweather to move up to 160. Triple G could have easily just moved up and fought Ward, Kovalev, or Stevenson. Also, in my opinion, Triple G has become a diva chasing Canelo, much like Hagler did chasing Leonard. I think Triple G belongs in a conversation of great middleweights, though, based simply off the title defenses. He didn't beat many elite fighters, but he did beat plenty of decent fighters. And yes, Billy C., his draw against Canelo counts as a successful defense, just like Wilder's draw with Fury. He says, this is where my man Rick hits me below the belt. He says, by the way, how you liking Adam Gase? Rick's a Miami Dolphin fan, and Adam Gase, in case you don't know, is the current New York Jets head coach. And, can't stand the guy. I thought, he's a big BS artist. He's done nothing. Worst play caller I've ever seen, and has no business even being in the pros. That's what I think of him. So I can only pray that he goes back to Miami just for Rick. As far as the email, first and foremost, I'm not going to put him in a category of Bernard Hopkins, and I couldn't, and the reason I couldn't is because of the longevity of Bernard Hopkins. There's no way that Triple G is going to be able to last as long as B-Hop. B-Hop was a throwback fighter, fought everybody. I do think Bernard Hopkins is an all-time great fighter. I'm not so sure about Triple G as being in the conversation as an all-time great. Bernard Hopkins is an all-time great. I like to wait for fighters to be out of the sport for 5 years or more before I give my thoughts on their overall, where they sit in the history. Yes, it's true. I'm a big Triple G fan, and I do think he was an avoided fighter. You can only judge fighters by who's available to them during their reign at champion. And Triple G was fighting everybody available to him, with the exception of the guys that wouldn't fight him. And I disagree about Floyd Mayweather. Everyone always said how big Triple G was, but he really isn't. And we see that now that when he fights a guy like Daniel Jacobs, think about Iran Barkley. These are big middleweights. Canelo, big middleweight. Frame-wise and height. Triple G wasn't that big. Could he get down to 147? No. But Mayweather did fight. He had a title at junior middleweight. And he's supposed to be one of the greatest fighters. Then he should have been able to outbox Triple G. I always wish that he did, just to prove that he was a great fighter. My thoughts of Mayweather, well, if you've listened to this show for any length of time, you know what I think of him. I think he's a great defensive fighter, but he never engaged, never fought people, at least in the last decade of his career, in their prime. Although I do believe a good fight right now would be Mayweather against Pacquiao, both fighters at the same stage. I think it would be an even fight. But as far as the Charlos, I wouldn't be so sure if they would fight Triple G. The Charlos have proven to me that they look for the easiest way out. They're like the typical definition of a bully. Talks a lot of smack and then runs the other way. I think the thing that brings the Charlos any kind of recognition is the fact that they're twins, identical twins. So it is what it is. As far as Triple G becoming a diva with Canelo, I think he deserved it. Triple G had proven himself and deserved the shot at Canelo. And the hoops that Canelo made Triple G jump through just to get the fight and basically jerked him around as much as he did, it was all following Floyd's blueprint of waiting for fighters to age, make them fight other fights, et cetera, et cetera. And it didn't end. Canelo, remember, as much as I like Canelo was popped for steroids. He could say he ain't ate tainted beef all he wants, but he was popped for steroids, man, and ruined the fight. And Triple G got pissed. He lost a ton of money in that fight. Then Canelo got mad at him for being mad at him. And that's why he doesn't want to give him the third fight. The first fight, you can make an argument that Triple G won both fights, although the second fight, Canelo seemed to have won legitimately, but no way the first fight. And the other thing is that neither of the fights, lived up to the expectations of what we had all hoped. You talk about great middleweight fights. Well, look no further than a Hagler Hearns. That was a great middleweight fight. Yes, they both were talented fighters, but they put their money where their mouth was with the preliminary pre-fight BS. They actually tried to do what they said they were going to do. So, do I think Triple G is a top fighter in today's era? Of course. An all-time great? I need more time. Great email. Thanks. And by the way, I think a lot of you should do what Rick does. Catch up on some of the older Talking Boxing with Billy C shows. They are available on YouTube, also on iTunes through our podcast, and then as well as the TV network, man. You got to check out that network if you haven't, because there's some great stuff you probably never even knew we did. It's the shows that Sal and I did, the classic fights we recalled, some events we did, all that stuff is up there. Some live events, some special events, some roundtable discussions that we had, some great stuff. Another email, this one's from my man Joel, and he says, the question is, I'm curious what you think Oleksandr Usyk, who Oleksandr Usyk should fight next before facing a Wilder, a Joshua, or a Ruiz. Who would be a good test for him that would properly set him up for a world title? Adam Koznacki, Dominic Brazil. I was wondering what you thought. He says, by the way, I'm thinking and praying for Sal every day. I hope he's feeling better. Well, Sal was on this morning, and I speak with Sal during the week, and of course here, and he's so far hanging in there. And the truth of the matter is Sal is going round by round. He's taking this just like a fight, and on the scorecards right now, Sal is ahead. So that's good. That's good news. And Sal, very much appreciate your thoughts, Joel. Yeah, I had talked earlier. I love the Dominic Brazil. Remember, Koznacki is fighting Chris Arreola next, so you got to take him out of the loop. But I do like that fight as well. But I like Dominic Brazil or a couple of young fighters. I think Kubrat Pulev would really test him, but a couple of young fighters too. The tough as nails Otto Wallen, who went the distance with Tyson Fury, cut him up pretty bad, as we all recall. And then, of course, Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce would also be some big tests. But I love the Brazil fight. I think that's actually the best and smartest matchup for Usyk from here. Thanks for the email. My man Augie from Riverhead, Long Island, left me a voicemail, and he says, I want to know about Canelo and him getting the biggest money contract from DAZN. What does that mean? Well, DAZN gave Canelo, I guess, more than they gave Anthony Joshua. What that means is DAZN kind of took over broadcasting boxing, or at least set the stage for streaming. And, it's funny, if you go back and watch or listen to any of our previous shows over the past decade, we were doing streaming long before most others were. And I had said, and I'm not just saying this, you can go back and listen even 5 years ago or a little longer. I was saying that the future of boxing would be streamed. And I said that what we're going to end up doing is paying a subscription. It was like I had a crystal ball, and I not that I'm trying to, pat myself on the back. I just can't reach, but the truth of the matter is I did say it. And my background was in the IT field, so I saw it coming. Did not think that it would happen as quickly as it did, but it certainly did. DAZN is a company that has other interests, and they basically gobbled up the top fighters, the biggest draws, and in a sense put HBO out of business. And Showtime is struggling right now too. The nature of the sport of boxing, which is different than other professional sports, is that other professional sports that have a league end up with television contracts through the league. So with the bargaining, the players, get a piece of it, etc. Boxing is not like that. A boxer signs a contract, he gets a X amount of money for the fight, and if his promoter cuts a deal with a television network, they get a cut. So what this, in a sense, does is it sets up a term, a length of term, an outline of the types of fights, and puts a lot of money in the fighter's pocket. And Canelo, I think his deal was $500 million, I think, if what I remember correctly. So what that means, Og, is that he's going to be fighting on DAZN exclusively, most likely for the rest of his career. He has been fighting tough opponents. The one thing you can't say about Canelo is that, he's fighting lesser opponents. But we see other fighters, Anthony Joshua, deal with DAZN. Billy Joe Saunders has got to deal with DAZN. You got Demetrius Andre. These guys are cutting deals. Wait, I'm trying to think. Maybe Billy Joe Saunders. Yeah, he signed with Matchroom. Matchroom is aligned with DAZN. But once they started doing it, other major networks followed suit, like ESPN. ESPN has a deal with Top Rank, and they will do both. They will do television versions and their streaming service. Then you have Golden Boy, who will go to DAZN or ESPN or wherever. The only one that hasn't really streamed is PBC. They're holding out old time. They're trying to cut deals with. I know their stuff is on Fox and Showtime and pay-per-view. So it is the future. There are lesser streaming companies out there as well, but it's not only the future; it's the present. And the one thing that is the key here for DAZN and ESPN Plus specifically is that you have to subscribe to them. And once you subscribe, you're getting these fights. So in other words, Canelo Kovalev or Canelo Triple G, they weren't pay-per-view. You didn't have to pay extra. Yeah, you got to pay your $20 a month or whatever it is, but you get those fights. So in a sense, if DAZN comes through, for example, and gives us, if you pay $20 a month, you're spending $240, right? You're spending right, 2 times 12, $240 a year. So theoretically, if they bring you 3 top fights, pay-per-view quality fights, you're paying the same, but you get a bunch of other fights too all year long. Versus the pay-per-views. The pay-per-view average now is up to $65 a pay-per-view. So I think it's good. The quality is good. I think the DAZN is the best one in terms of quality. Sergio Mora is growing on me. Brian Kenny, I've always loved BK. Can't stand Chris Maddox. Can't stand some of the non-boxing, eye candy they throw in too. But it is what it is, and that's what we can expect. And speaking of expecting, Canelo Kovalev in Las Vegas on November 2nd, they announced the undercard for that fight, and Ryan Garcia's taking on Romero Duno in a fight that we wanted to see previously. Also, Bakam Murtazilov is taking on Jorge Fortilla in a junior middleweight elimination fight. And Sencia Estrada and Marlon Esparza will be fighting for the vacant WBA interim title. There's also some other young fighters on that card that I'm looking forward to see. And I'm going to most likely be there. So I'll keep you posted on that. There's also some young fighters that I'm looking forward to see. And Evander Holyfield's son, Evan Holyfield, will be making his pro debut on that card as well. So you'll be able to get tickets by clicking through our website. So look forward for that coming up a little bit later in the week. But just to, in closing, I wanted to break down and give you my thoughts on the big fight next week, which we'll be talking about next show. Oleksandr Usyk is going up against Artur Beterbiev October 8th. It's Friday night on ESPN. Beterbiev is an IBF World Light Heavyweight Champion. He's ranked number 11 in the world at light heavyweight by the computer. He's 5'11" and a half inches tall with a 73-inch reach. He was born in Russia, but he's fighting out of Canada right now. He's 34 years old, and he's undefeated, 14-0 with 14 knockouts. In his last 9 fights, his 4 biggest fights, and he's fought some good opposition throughout his whole career, but the 4 biggest fights, Tavarius Cloud in 2014 knocked him out in the second round in Canada, and 2015 knocked out Gabriel Campillo, which is a tough out for anybody. He also beat Eric Koling in 2017, knocked him out in the 12th and final round of that fight. And last year in October, almost a little more than a year ago, Callum Johnson didn't get past the 4th round. Those are his 4 big fights that he fought and won. When you look at Usyk, Usyk's got a 2-inch height advantage over Beterbiev. He's the WBC light heavyweight champion. He's 2 years younger at 32. He's ranked number 2 in the world by the computer. His record's 17-0 with 14 knockouts. They both have 14 knockouts. He has a height and reach advantage. He's got a 2.5-inch reach advantage. Out of the Ukraine, living in California right now. He has 88 rounds as a pro. Beterbiev has 52. So, like I said earlier, they're pretty close in professional experience. His last 9 fights, the 4 biggest ones he had, 2016, Isaac Chilimba. Chilimba couldn't continue after the 8th. Uniesky Gonzalez in April of 2017 knocked him out in 3. And Gonzalez is a tough fighter, man. That's a quality win. He beat Adonis Stevenson in 2018 to win the title. That was a fight that Stevenson was managed to duck, and then when he got knocked out, Stevenson's career was ended in that fight. And then in his last fight, March of this year, he fought Dogdu Ngumbo, knocked him out in 5. Ngumbo is another tough fighter. I love this fight. And Beterbiev is a powerful fighter. But I'm leaning towards Usyk in this fight. I think that his boxing skill and his punching power and the fact that, he has fought a little tougher opposition. Early in his career, he fought 2 journeyman fighters in his second and 4th fight. In his second fight, he fought Michael Jabenga, who's a tough out, and he made his pro debut in 6-round fights. And then he fought and beat Otis Griffin, another tough fighter. So I mean, he did and Corey Cummings, he beat him too. I mean, these are tough fighters to be fighting early in your career as a pro. And Beterbiev, I should say, his first fight was a 4-rounder. Then he got into the 6. So very similar paths, but I'm leaning towards Usyk in this fight next week, and we'll be talking about that post-fight next show. Also, my final thoughts on the Usyk fight. Usyk is a great fighter. I mean, I'm going to use that term. He's a great fighter. He's got a boxing ability for a big guy. I love it. The difference between him and some other fighters that generally have what you would call boxing ability like him aren't as aggressive. They have a tendency to sit and wait and pick their shots, pick their times. Usyk goes in for the kill, and he throws combination punches. He lets his hands go. Very effective with his jab. Last night he wasn't as accurate as I would have liked to have seen. It's not like Witherspoon was elusive. He was basically a human punching bag right in front of him. But Usyk did warm up a bit. He had been out almost a year. He did come off of a bicep surgery. So I thought that he performed well. But I don't think he's ready for a big-name fighter. I would love to see him fight Dominic Breazeale next, or even if he wants to challenge himself, go for a Pulov, or like I said earlier, a couple of young fighters in Joe Joyce or Daniel Dubois, both heavy hitters. Don't box as well as Usyk, but we could see if Usyk can handle a punch from an aggressive fighter. And then, an overall tough guy in Otto Allen. Just went the distance with Tyson Fury, cut up Tyson Fury pretty bad, rocked Tyson Fury in that fight, coming off a win after that fight. So, I'd like to see Usyk in one of those kinds of fights. I'm a little disappointed that the WBO and WBA automatically have him ranked number 1 and number 2 respectively. The only asterisk you put next to WBO is that is their policy. If you're a champion and relinquish your titles and move up to the division, they automatically give you an automatic mandatory position. So theoretically, Usyk will be in a mandatory position to fight the winner of Andy Ruiz Jr. against Anthony Joshua. That fight coming up in a little bit. So, be careful what you wish for. If I'm Usyk, I go after one of these other fighters. He could make some money from both of them. I do like the fact that the WBA has ordered the Barrios Akhmedov rematch. I loved the first fight, and it'll be interesting to see how both fighters improve or change their game plan against each other. I don't think Akhmedov, his style is going to change. The question is, can Barrios hold him off again? I mean, if that fight was 15 rounds, there was no way Barrios was going to survive. He was busted up really bad in that fight, and I kind of see the same thing happening again. The only thing Akhmedov could do to help his cause would be brush up on his defense a little bit better. As far as Dmitry Bivol goes, he's too small to be in the light heavyweight division, although he's a champion and made his 5th title defense in the division. So, what am I talking about, right? I think Bivol, if he did move down to super middleweight, could be more destructive. He seems, like a babyface guy. He seems like he goes in there, he's bring you lunch pail, the blue-collar worker that I like, the blue-collar fighter, bring you lunch pail and take care of business. If a knockout comes, then it comes. If it doesn't come, then it doesn't come. That's the way he seems to fight, and I kind of like it. So, anyway, aside from that, my only other thoughts, I'm not too crazy about the Charlo brothers, and I'm not too crazy about Jamal fighting Dennis Hogan. So I'll be rooting for Hogan. And, my only reason is because I'd like to see one of the Charlo brothers actually fight a top guy. While I'm on the subject, I'd like to see any PBC fighter fight another top fighter outside the PBC. That's name isn't Andy Ruiz Jr. I am excited to see David Lemieux get back in the ring, although I'm not so sure his desire is there. He's a one-dimensional fighter. And if you stand there and let him connect, you're going to go to sleep. If you box him, you beat him. I mean, that's the way it is with Lemieux. And then finally, Tyson Fury with the WWE fighting in a couple of weeks on October 31st, Halloween in Saudi Arabia. It's kind of fitting. After they announced it officially, Fury, who's basically an entertainer, he said, and I quote, "It's something I've always dreamed of. I'm a lifelong WWE fan. It's a fantastic opportunity for me to be here. I just want to say how excited I am to be fighting the monster among men, Braun Strowman. After seeing him, I really know why he's got the nickname, the monster among men. But me being the undefeated linear heavyweight champion of the world, I fear no man. That bothers me that they get to parade him around like that. But anyway, he says, I'm undefeated in 30 professional fights, and when I go to Saudi Arabia to fight Strowman, I'm still going to be undefeated because I'm going to knock him out. He talks about how good his hands are, but he's messing with a guy who's got the best hands in the sport of boxing. He don't want none of them hands, let me tell you that. My man Coach, he has been putting boxing next to the WWE for quite some time. As a matter of fact, I got to give him credit for calling this several years back. And it can't be more obvious now. I mean, Mayweather did it, yeah, I know, but it can't be more obvious now. Tyson Fury does seem like a WWE character. And I just think that it's kind of sad. Dax made a point of crossover fans. My point, like I said earlier, the issue is what boxing needs is lifelong boxing fans. What boxing does not need is a temporary boxing fan, or more like what I said earlier, today's fan, they're boxer fans. They follow a boxer. I think Floyd was a great example of that. Floyd had a lot of fans. Some just hated him and wanted to see him lose, but still bought his stuff, and the other ones loved him, and he felt he did no wrong. And my question is, how many of those Floyd Mayweather fans that were pure Floyd Mayweather fans are still watching the sport now that Floyd is retired? My point about boxing is it's always going to exist, and we can always complain. Every era complains that the boxing isn't as good as the previous, especially when you get older. Someday people are going to be talking about the Canelo Alvarez's and the Joshuas and Deontay Wilder. Well, maybe not Wilder, but saying how good they were and comparing them to the current day's fighters. Just like I have a tendency to go back and compare eras myself. It's nature. It's human nature to do that. But what boxing needs, and the sad part is today we have athletes in the sport of boxing that are bigger, stronger, faster, know more about nutrition, et cetera, and they don't fight as much. They, if a fighter fights 4 times in 1 year, they get an award for the boxer of the year. They used to, back in the early days, they used to fight twice a week. It was a trade, and now it's a scam. It's a shim-sham. Fighters get to fight non-competitive fights for 20 of their first fights, non-competitive, and then all of a sudden they're awarded a belt. So it's kind of sad in that respect. But I have faith that the sport's going to remain. I like the way it's going in terms of the streaming. We do get to see a lot more boxing on some kind of service, whether it be TV or streaming service, whether you can listen to shows on podcasts or watch replays of shows on YouTube, et cetera. It's worldwide. We can watch fights from any place. We haven't had that luxury ever in the sport, so in that respect, it's good. I just think that if we can get more lifelong fans, the fans drive the sport. So as long as the fans accept, not great fights, we're going to get not great fights. When the fans demand for big fights, we get them. So it really, the burden of the sport falls on the fan. So if you're a young fan and you've been getting into the sport because you like a specific fighter, all I can say is, first of all, thank you for giving boxing a shot. But I would encourage you to not only expand your interest in other fighters, but take time to go back and try to read some books, like my book, or read some books on some older fighters from years gone by. Try and punch up some video of some older fighters and see what old guys like me are talking about, and then use your comparisons. Try to educate yourself in the sport, and I think not only will it be better for the sport, but it will be better for you. So anyway, hey, thanks for being with us today. Like I said, stay tuned, and we'll keep you posted on the Vegas trip. I do plan on going out there for Canelo and Kovalev, so I'll keep you posted on that. You will be able to get tickets to that event, for the main event, through our website. So check it out, BillyCBoxing.com. It should be up later this week. Hey, Make sure you tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.